By current indications, America is heading toward a close presidential election in November. The two major candidates are well defined, most voters have made up their minds, and, despite some significant events, little has changed over recent months in the balance between President Biden and former President Donald Trump. Yet as static as the political environment appears, there is also an underlying instability born out of the frustration that many voters feel about the choice. What could shift the balance before November? Are there known unknowns that yet could make a difference? Some unknowns are obvious. A health episode affecting either Biden, 81, or Trump, 77, both of whom qualify as the oldest candidates ever to seek the presidency, would have a dramatic impact. Some unknowns are harder to evaluate, a principal one being the potential for independent or third-party candidates to siphon off enough votes in enough states to materially affect the outcome. Bill Galston of the Brookings Institution, when asked about all this, quickly ticked off 10 questions, the answers to which are unknown today but which he said conceivably could affect public attitudes enough to change the trajectory of the race. Among them, will inflation fall enough for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates and thereby give consumers and borrowers a sense that the worst is over? Will crossings on the US-Mexico border slow to the point that immigration is a lesser factor in the minds of voters? Will the war in Gaza subside enough to allow Biden to heal the wounds in his fractured base? Similarly, will Trump be convicted of a major crime before the election? Will the former president have enough money to wage a campaign against Biden and Democrats flush with cash? Will the disarray among Republicans in states like Michigan and Arizona affect Trump's vote count? Will Nikki Haley's voters really recoil from supporting Trump in numbers enough to cause his downfall? Biden and Trump are both running as incumbents, one currently in office, the other having served 4 years before losing re-election in 2020. Just about everything to know about them is already known, or so it would seem. The Biden team is betting that Trump's strength in polls is attributable to amnesia within the electorate. They will spend hundreds of millions of dollars reminding people in the battleground states of the worst of Trump's presidency and personality. If their bet is right, that could move undecided voters into Biden's column. Some Republican strategists see the issue matrix as almost fully baked and in a way that is bad for Biden. They acknowledge the good economic news, the stock market continuing to surge, the jobless rate at a 50-year low, the US economy stronger than any other in the world. But Republicans argue that, for many Americans, the prices of gasoline, groceries and home mortgages, all higher than when Biden took office, weigh most heavily in how they judge the economy and their own well-being. To financially stressed families, they say, the reaction to current conditions can be summed up in 4 words: things cost too much. Biden has only a few months to change those perceptions. World events have not played to Biden's advantage. His work assembling the Allied coalition to support Ukraine in its war against Russia won praise at the time. Today, he struggles to get Congress to approve substantially more assistance to the Ukrainians at a time when it is badly needed. The war in Gaza has divided Democrats. Biden is caught between his longtime support for Israel and demands that he do more to pressure Israel to take steps to alleviate the humanitarian crisis for Palestinian civilians trapped in the war zone. China and Iran add to worries about international instability. What if something else were to happen? Typically, a foreign policy crisis in the waning months of a presidential campaign would help an incumbent president, due to the rally-round effect. Today, some Democrats worry that any new crisis could be costly to Biden, adding to perceptions of international chaos on his watch. Some voters have told pollsters that, if Trump is convicted of a crime, they might re-evaluate their support for him. No one knows if that is really the case, and, if it is, how many voters would be so inclined. In contested battleground states, shifts among a small number of voters could change results. Few analysts see the New York case involving hush money to an adult film actress and alleged falsification of business records as rising to the level of political significance. That leaves the 2 cases about subverting the 2020 election, one federal and one in Georgia, and the one about Trump's mishandling of classified documents. It's not clear when those trials will begin and whether any will be concluded before the election. Trump's legal strategy of delay so far has worked. There is a counter-theory among some Republicans about the impact of a possible conviction, which holds that all of the charges and penalties could turn Trump into a more sympathetic figure among some unaligned voters. That's preposterous to many people who see Trump as finally having to face justice for his deeds and lacks empirical evidence. The indictments solidified Trump's support among core Republicans, which rendered the GOP nomination process a non-event. Trump and his allies are now working to persuade the persuadable that he is a victim of piling on by a weaponized criminal justice system. This is plain to see in his complaints about the charges overall and now the nearly $500 million bond he is supposed to post. One of the biggest unknowns is the impact of independent and third-party candidates. Voters unhappy with the choice of Biden or Trump could be looking for an exit ramp. One choice is simply not to vote, or not to cast a presidential ballot but vote in all other races. A second could be to align with one of the independent candidates.